Where does AI stand in the legal industry? Let's have Kristi Swartz, partner of DLA Piper, answer some questions about this topic.
My name is Kristi Swartz. I am a partner here at DLA Piper in the Hong Kong office. I head up the FinTech for Asia Pacific, and I'm also the location head for the Intellectual Property and Technology Department.
How do you foresee AI tools being integrated into daily operations of law firms, particularly in areas like contract analysis, due diligence, regulatory compliance?
Right. So I think that there's different buckets when we look at AI use in law firms. One, we have to be pretty careful about the actual use of the data, where it comes from, what we do with it, and then ultimately, is it correct in the analysis or the advice that we're giving to our clients? When you talk about things like due diligence, it is quite helpful if you're doing contract review. There's things, I think, like Butterfly AI that we have here at DLA Piper that we use to be able to run through contracts and do analysis, or just basically brief rundowns and do contracts synopsis around the terms and the data that you would need to do for due diligence. So I think that's quite helpful because it sometimes can be a lot of different contracts, voluminous work, time consuming, and things that can be done fairly quickly now with the use of AI. Now, do I really consider that to maybe be the use of AI? I'm not so sure. Maybe it's an automation point, slightly more than being just something that you think about, oh, AI is actually telling me something that I otherwise didn't know. I think that's maybe a slight differentiation. But it does help to do these contract reviews. It does help to take time out from the process because sometimes you're dealing with very tight deadlines and you want to get things done quickly. So that bit of it, I think, is quite useful from a time resource. But from an information resource, I think sometimes the AI aspect of it is that there are very few times, unless you're dealing with some things that are maybe very, very general. If you're dealing with things that are specific, the use of AI at the moment, I think, is somewhat limited from a legal professional's perspective, because of the fact that if you're doing something in a very detailed space, my space is virtual assets, digital assets, I think sometimes there's a lot of things, for one, that are out there that are not necessarily true. The other aspect, I think, as well, is that it's not necessarily accurate. And the other aspect of it is that it's a pretty fast-changing, fast-paced area of law. So therefore, I'm not really sure yet whether AI is caught up to being able to kind of keep the pace with what's happening in that space. But if you're looking for general things about how to find legal precedents, let's say, in laws or stories or precedents of things that have happened in the region, let's say, that's something I think that AI is very useful for. It can get you pretty quick in a very small amount of time, a lot further than it would do to take a trainee, let's say, to go out and look at these bits and troll through the papers as they used to do, or troll online and say, oh, what did the South China Morning Post say 2 years ago, 3 years ago about some things. So it does help cut down from a time perspective, which obviously means we can focus a lot more on value added type of work, as opposed to doing some of the kind of what I'll call prep work when we're starting to deliver the advice that we give.
Thank you for your response. Now, so as these tools are slowly implemented into law firms, do you believe that adoption of these tools will set a new benchmark for future law practitioners before they join the field?
Well, I'm not sure that it'll set a new precedent, but what I think is that the way in which the new generation, and I'm going to take a very good example of something I've recently done, is that I'm used to basically looking and drafting, writing on a piece of paper, handing it back to somebody and amending it, or amending it on screen as we do an overall process of review for a document. Most of the people that I work with these days, they don't use paper. They're like, why do you bother to print things? This is ridiculous, Kristi. It's just, you just look on the screen and that's how it works. But I think there's a process by which, when you kind of learn a certain way and do things in a certain way, that's the way in which you're able to process that information, and you're able to give that advice. For me, it has to be, I look at it, I read it on a piece of paper, I mark down. I usually used to joke that a pen's usually my brain, because I can't think if I don't have a pen in my hand. And then you basically mark it down and then you hand it back. The new generation does not think like that at all. And I think, with phones and tablets and all the rage, you're learning at a very different, the new generation coming up is learning at a very different way, that information. So I think they're going to bypass, we were having a bit of a joke a couple weeks ago about the Dewey Decimal System. I don't think anyone actually knows what the Dewey Decimal System is, because in law schools, like, did you have to go look up a book? And it was like, what are you talking about, going to a library and looking up a book? So I think that's quite the funny thing, is that nobody knows what a Dewey Decimal System is anymore. So what AI will do, it will kind of somewhat leapfrog, I think, over a lot of the processes, not just from an output perspective, but from a process perspective as well. I think how you learn will be very much, say even in 5 years from now, it'll be very, very different. So in that respect, I don't think the study of law, the basically dealing in the legal profession will be any different. I think it will leapfrog over certain aspects of it, but I think it's going to start kind of at the learning process, the knowledge base, and then the process base will come and add on top of it, and eventually it'll come to fruition. But yeah, this is a very, very fast kind of moving space. So AI, I say 5 years. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's something being cooked up as we speak now, and in 2 years time, boom, it's out, and then all of a sudden it's done that leapfrogging. But it's I think the hype about AI, I think I'm a little bit of I'm not going to say an AI skeptic, but I think it is what it is, and it's a great thing. But it can be used in so many different ways for so many different things. Again, some of it I think is really from a process. It's not necessarily true if we're going to be kind of down to its natural perspective of what really AI is. I'm not sure that AI is basically the be-all and end-all for everyone. Like, it's not going to bake us a cake at the end of the day. It may find us different recipes quickly from different places, and saying what a chocolate cake in Indonesia tastes like, as opposed to one, let's say, from the UK. But I don't think it's going to change how we bake the cake. You're still going to have an oven. You're still going to have the ingredients. It's just a matter of how you actually get the recipes for that cake. Now I think will be somewhat changed. Yeah, I think what we've spoken about, and I think many times in the legal profession, I guess it was about 20 years ago, Watson AI from IBM was going to be taking over my job. And when I first was entering into the legal profession, I was like, oh, Kristi, don't you know this machine's going to take over every legal position. There's going to be no need for lawyers in the future. And I think about 2 months ago, FT article actually says, well, rest assured, lawyers, that's the one profession it probably won't take over, because the fact is you've got to have people behind it. Like I said, you've got to have this kind of fact check and people with a little bit of experience and knowledge to say whether or not the output that you're getting it really quickly, no doubt, a lot quicker than you had before, but it's whether or not that output that you're getting so quickly now is actually going to be of any value. So I think there's room for improvement for sure. Mm-hmm. I just think that it's not the be all and end all that everyone's kind of making it out to be at the moment, and everyone's saying, oh, it's just going to come and take out all these jobs. I think because of the processes aspect of it, the process driven mechanisms that AI has for efficiencies around how they can deliver that, it will probably take out some, but that just means other people will reskill into other areas and kind of, if you will, be value add and uplift in job responsibilities.
Right. Thank you so much. Now I'm going to move on to the last question for this topic.
Sure.
So this question: what legal elements must AI tool developers keep in mind when creating new applications catered to the legal industry? And I've received an interesting response. A lawyer said that he wants an app that can organize his email for him, because it's just a factory of emails. And there are many of other interesting answers I've received. It's not what I imagined. Do you have any personal opinion towards this? What you actually want as a tool?
What I would like as a tool is a little bit of a combination of a couple of things. I'd like my daily life as a lawyer, because despite the fact there's a lot of discussion around whether we're going to ever get away from the 6-minute interval time billing, and whether that's going to be taken over by different aspects of how we charge for our work. Mm-hmm. I'd like to kind of integrate that into, again, like I said, I like to do high level, high impact, high value work, because in any progression of any new area, and I would suggest that the fintech, the virtual assets area is a new area of law. Newish, let's say 10 years. For law, I suppose that's probably new. But what happens is it starts here, and it kind of starts to come down the value chain, and it becomes commoditized. So I think when you're talking at the work being at this end of the kind of food chain, it's not able to basically implement the AI aspect. But what I would hope from me personally is when it starts to get down to the kind of bottom of the curve, that the process aspect or the process bits that can be looked at from, let's say, trainee level to paralegal levels, I'm really hoping that AI can basically come and kind of cover that area, so that what we're doing and what we're looking at is really the high value, high end value add perspective that clients actually want to pay you for. Clients don't want to pay you for this part of the equation. They really want to pay you for the tail that kind of swings up on the curve. So for me personally, yes, please help me organize my email. Please help me do my timesheets. Please help me do all the things that no one ever cared to do as a lawyer in the first place. But I think really what I want to do is I want to be looking at the complex areas to say, how does AI meet fintech, and what is it going to do, and what are the complications you may have for regulatory purposes? How does that intersect with the fact that virtual assets are worldwide, they're borderless, and you know, everyone talks about jurisdiction because that's, you know, in law we're qualified in certain areas to do certain things for that area. Now, in the things that we look at, the problem is that it's for a space that's borderless, and that basically everyone says, well, what if I'm sitting in Hong Kong but I want to do work in or advertise my products in, you know, South America? Is that possible? We need to start kind of thinking about that in a branched out way. And I think, again, that's where AI can help you. It can identify some of the areas. Maybe there's new laws. You can have things that start to comb and look at new areas that it's trying to think about. But it's not the kind of mundane things that, for me at least, that I'm saying, oh, let's basically look at email, let's look at phone calls, let's look at all these other things. It's like, let's talk about the value add, the things that are really interesting, that are starting to impact everyone, you know, in a global capacity, if you're basically trying to offer these services, which most companies, even big and small, it used to be it was only multinational companies that were looking to say, oh, I have to worry about the worldwide aspect of GDPR, or I need to look at some of these other aspects. For I think the world going forward, I think it's becoming an area of the fact that even if you're a small company in Hong Kong's 7 million people, I'm going to want to do things in other areas, so I'm going to want to branch out. So those are the areas that I think when we're trying to help guide clients in the advice we're giving, it's really to try to see if we can get them down that road quicker, faster, easier, and of course less expensive, because I think everyone thinks that, and clients are actually demanding, to be honest. One of the things that we're seeing is you're asking about a lot of the law firm expectation, but a lot of our clients are coming to us and saying, what are you as a law firm doing to basically get AI to make my legal spend be even less, and that you can do some of these more important skills and some of these more important pieces of work for me. Because I think, again, you know, the things that we use trainees and paralegals for, I think eventually, now will those jobs go away? No, but you'll need less of them to factor in, and you'll need less of them to be able to do the types of work and things that we're seeing today. But what we hope is that means that, again, paralegals and of course trainees qualify into being lawyers, etc. So we move everyone up the food chain, so to speak, and the value then is created in type of the work and the way which we deliver that work.
Thank you so much for your response. That was very elaborative. Love that.